The night was supposed to be perfect. Lights shimmered across the venue like stars pulled down from the sky, cameras flashed in rapid bursts, and every step on the red carpet felt like a moment frozen in time. The gala was filled with elegance, power, and unspoken stories hiding behind practiced smiles. And then something subtle happened. So subtle that many almost missed it. But the internet did not. Shen Yue walked in gracefully, calm, composed, glowing in a way that felt effortless. Not trying too hard, not chasing attention, just present. Her energy was soft but powerful, the kind that does not beg to be noticed yet somehow becomes the center of attention anyway. Miles Wei arrived not long after, equally composed, carrying that familiar charm people have come to expect. Confident, polished, aware of every camera angle. On any other night, this would have been just another celebrity appearance. But this night was different. Because when the moment came for them to stand together, something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but clearly. Shen Yue did not stand next to him. At first, it felt like coincidence. A small adjustment, a quick movement, maybe a simple misunderstanding. People brushed it off, thinking it meant nothing. After all, events like this are chaotic, positions change, schedules move quickly. But then it happened again. And again. Each time there was an opportunity for them to be side by side, Shen Yue gently redirected herself elsewhere. Not in a way that caused a scene. Not in a way that drew immediate attention. But in a way that was intentional enough to feel deliberate. And that is when people started watching more closely. Every glance. Every step. Every pause. Suddenly, the silence between them became louder than anything else happening in the room. You could feel it. That invisible line. That unspoken boundary. So what really happened? Why would Shen Yue avoid standing next to Miles Wei at such a high-profile event? The answer is not as simple as people want it to be. Because sometimes, what looks like distance is not about conflict. Sometimes, it is about control. There is a certain pressure that comes with being constantly watched. Every move analyzed, every interaction turned into a headline, every second stretched into a narrative that may not even be true. Shen Yue has always carried a different kind of presence. She does not chase attention. She does not force connections for the sake of appearance. And that night, more than anything, she chose something rare in an environment designed for performance. She chose authenticity. Think about it. At events like this, standing next to someone is never just standing. It becomes a statement. A signal. A story waiting to be created by the public. And once that story starts, it does not stop. Speculation grows. Rumors form. Narratives twist. Before you know it, a simple moment turns into something far bigger than it was ever meant to be. Shen Yue understood that. She understood how quickly things can spiral, how easily a single image can become a headline, how fast assumptions can take over reality. So she stepped away. Not out of fear. Not out of drama. But out of awareness. There is also another layer people rarely consider. Comfort. Real comfort. Not the kind people fake for cameras, but the kind you feel when you are genuinely at ease in a situation. Body language never lies. And that night, Shen Yue's body language told a quiet story. She was calm, but careful. Present, but selective. She smiled when she needed to, engaged when it felt right, but never forced herself into a moment that did not feel natural. That is something people often misunderstand. They expect celebrities to act a certain way, to perform connection even when it is not there, to create moments just to satisfy expectations. But Shen Yue did the opposite. She chose not to perform. And that is what made the moment so powerful. Because in a room full of people trying to create perfect images, she allowed herself to remain real. And that kind of decision does not go unnoticed. Even Miles Wei, in his own way, seemed to respect that space. There was no visible tension. No awkward confrontation. Just distance. Clean, intentional, and quietly respected. Which makes this even more interesting. Because if there was conflict, it would have shown. If there was drama, it would have leaked. But there was none of that. Only space. And sometimes, Space says more than words ever could. The internet, of course, did what it always does. Clips were replayed. Moments were slowed down. Angles were analyzed. People tried to decode every second, searching for something hidden, something dramatic, something worth turning into a bigger story. But maybe the truth is simpler. Maybe the real reason Shen Yue refused to stand next to Miles Wei at the gala is not about scandal. Not about rumors. Not about anything negative at all. Maybe it is about boundaries. About knowing when to step forward and when to step back. About understanding that not every moment needs to be shared, not every connection needs to be displayed, not every expectation needs to be fulfilled. That kind of awareness is rare, especially in a world that constantly demands visibility. And that is why this moment stood out. Not because it was loud, but because it was quiet. Not because it created chaos, but because it created curiosity. And in that quiet decision, Shen Yue reminded everyone of something important. You do not always have to follow the script. You do not always have to stand where people expect you to stand. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is choosing your own position, even when no one understands it. And maybe that is the real story behind it all. Not avoidance. Not rejection. But intention. A simple decision that turned into one of the most talked about moments of the night. Not because of what was shown, but because of what was not. The night did not end when the cameras stopped flashing. In fact, that was when the real story quietly unfolded. As guests began to leave the gala, the energy shifted from performance to reality. Conversations became softer, laughter less forced, and the distance Shen Yue had carefully maintained throughout the evening suddenly made more sense. She was no longer surrounded by handlers or guided by timing cues. For the first time that night, she moved freely. Across the room, Miles Wei was speaking with a small group, relaxed, composed, and seemingly unaffected by everything that had happened. But if you paid close attention, there was a subtle change. His eyes drifted, not searching, but aware. He knew people were watching. He knew the moment had already turned into a narrative far beyond the room. The moment no one expected. Backstage, away from the cameras, Shen Yue paused. Not dramatically. Not in a way that demanded attention. Just a quiet stop, like someone finally taking a breath after holding it all night. And then, unexpectedly, Miles Wei approached. There was no tension in the air. No confrontation. No dramatic exchange. Just two professionals standing face to face, speaking in tones too soft for anyone else to hear. It lasted less than a minute. But in that minute, everything changed. No raised voices. No visible emotion. Just clarity. The kind that does not need an audience. When they stepped apart, there was still distance between them. But it was different now. Not avoidance. Not discomfort. It felt intentional. Defined. What people missed. While the internet focused on clips and angles, trying to decode body language frame by frame, they missed the most important part of the story. This was never about tension. It was about control. Shen Yue was not reacting to Miles Wei. She was controlling her narrative. In an environment where every movement can be interpreted, she chose precision over assumption, distance over confusion. And Miles Wei understood that. He did not force interaction. He did not try to close the gap for the sake of appearances. He respected the space she created, and that respect spoke louder than any staged moment ever could. The industry reality. In the entertainment world, proximity is rarely accidental. Standing next to someone can spark rumors, confirm speculation, or create headlines that live far longer than the event itself. For actors like Shen Yue, whose image has been built carefully over time, even a single moment can reshape public perception. So what looked like avoidance was actually awareness. A decision made not in the moment, but long before the gala even began. The final reveal. The real reason Shen Yue refused to stand next to Miles Wei was not conflict, not discomfort, and not drama. It was intention. She chose clarity over curiosity, boundaries over assumptions, control over chaos. And in doing so, she turned a simple red carpet moment into one of the most talked about stories of the night. The ending that says everything. As the venue emptied and the lights dimmed, both actors left separately. No final shared moment for the cameras. No last-minute interaction to satisfy public curiosity. Just two individuals walking their own paths. And maybe that is the most powerful part of the story. Not everything needs to be explained. Some distances are not about what went wrong. They are about knowing exactly what to protect.